Welcome back to the Siloam Plus podcast. My name is Josh Watford, and across the desk from me is...
John Nicholson's here.
So you're probably tired of us already, but...
don't say that. Folks are engaged and enjoying this.
Yeah, I'm sure they are.
I hope that, seriously, I hope that you enjoy this half as much as Josh and I enjoy it, even though we're spotty and being able to pump these out on a regular basis. These conversations are so good. And I just appreciate the time with you, Josh. I mean, it's good for me.
Yeah, we've been saying when the mic's been off how much fun this is and all that. So thanks for saying that on air.
Yeah, man.
Course,
hey,
but
that's
yeah,
all right.
it really has been fun. Again, when we started this podcast, we never thought anybody else would ever even listen.
Exactly.
But we just enjoy talking about it. So whether or not you enjoy it or not, we hope you do, but John and I enjoy it.
Absolutely.
Probably more than you guys do.
We're still looking for 5 stars from Diane, but, anyway.
No, she changed that.
Oh, did we get 5?
Yeah,
Thank
we have
you,
5 stars
Diane.
from Diane Jowers. So that is a very elusive award.
Amen.
So we're thankful for that. Anyways, second to the last section of the Lord's Prayer that we're going to be dealing with. And it reads Matthew 6:13, and lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil.
So are we praying for God not to lead us to temptation? Does God lead us into temptation, Josh?
Well, the Bible says he doesn't.
So what's Jesus doing here?
So I'm trying to remember exactly how you preached on this, but here's something that I point out often. You think about probably the clearest. There's 2 very clear passages in the Old Testament. One is Abraham. Mm-hmm. God tells Abraham to kill his kid, to sacrifice his child of promise, Isaac. Now, is that a temptation or a test? Because our translations all say test. Mm-hmm. But temptation and test are the same word. Well, I'd have to go back and do my homework in Hebrew. I know it's the same in the Greek. Same word in the Greek.
Yeah.
But we translate it different ways.
It.
Temptation or test. And so they seem to be the 2 sides of the same coin. You think of Job. Satan comes, says, God says, where you been? Just been hanging out on earth. And he's like, well, have you considered my servant Job? And God says, all right, you can do whatever you want to with him, just don't touch him.
Don't touch his
the first time. And then the second time, he's like, you can do whatever you want to him, just don't kill him, right? And so then Satan does all this stuff to Job, and Job's crying out to God, and God comes back and says, who darkens my counsel with wisdom without knowledge?
That's some cold comfort, man.
Right?
Wow.
Yeah. Gird your loins like a man, and I will ask you questions. And so Satan's not even brought up after those first few things, and so God's doing this in some way. He's testing Job, and we say God tests, but Satan tempts. Mm-hmm. And the difference is, you think about those really mean teachers you had in high school. And you just felt like they were giving you a test to fail you.
Wanting to fail you.
Just wanting you to fail that test. And Satan, that's what he does. He'll throw things at you in order for you to fall.
Yeah.
God will put situations in our life, put people in our life, put whatever's going on in our life, not so that we would fall, but so that we would grow stronger. I think of 1 Peter, when he compares us to fire, or gold put in fire. And he says the testing of our faith produces that endurance that's needed. And so, that was kind of rambling.
No, that's good stuff.
But when I think of lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil, we can pray that God's going to still put these tests in our lives.
And I think one of the highlights for me, one of the places that I begin to understand what's going on here, is to look back at the rest of the prayer. What have I been praying? I want your kingdom to come, not mine, or not ours even. We want your kingdom. We need you to provide daily bread, not me. Who am I depending on? I need you to forgive me, or forgive us our debts as we are forgiving others. Mm-hmm. And so this temptation, and the ultimate temptation, this traces all the way back to Genesis 3, is that we would become gods, that we will provide for ourselves. We'll take care of our daily bread, thank you very much. Or we'll create our own little kingdom and we'll rule it ourselves, thank you very much. Or we'll decide who gets forgiven or who doesn't. This prayer is, lead me not to temptation. Don't lead me not to a place where I'm tempted to put myself on the throne that rightfully and only belongs to you. Or, and this is one of the issues with, there's a lot of chatter about Christian nationalism that's out there.
I wanted to bring that up in our discussion about your kingdom come.
Well, we can bring that back because it comes full circle. Again, it all connects. But this is that temptation that we want to erect our version or our ideal of what this looks like so that we can rule it. No. Let's let God rule through us. Lead me not to that temptation. Yeah. And the whole reason we're praying that is because we know we will fail. Mm-hmm. Don't test me, God. I know I will fail.
Yeah. And this kind of comes on the heels of Matthew 4, where Jesus is tempted by Satan in the desert. And I think it's Luke, I don't know if Matthew mentions it, but he says that the Spirit leads him into the wilderness, knowing what's going to happen.
Yeah.
I believe Jesus knew what was going to happen. He fasts for 40 days, then he's tempted by Satan 3 different times for Jesus to essentially use his divinity to bail out his humanness.
Yeah.
And, how is Jesus going to reign? How is he going to be the servant that he's come to earth to be? And so for us, I think we can connect that a little bit. How are we going to do these things that we're already being praying about? Are we going to be tempted to not forgive? Are we going to be tempted to give our life over to the worries of this world to make sure we have abundant food and abundant clothing and all that kind of stuff? And are we going to be tempted in the context of even just this section on prayer? Are we going to be tempted to pray in such a way that is pretentious, pray in such a way that is self-serving, so on and so forth? He's already talked about several temptations in the context of this prayer.
Yeah.
All those go into this.
And that brings up again the utility of praying this prayer often. And I'll remind you, and it was an aha moment for me when I went back and discovered that in the Didache, around 50 AD or so, or AD 50, I should say, shortly after, this is the early years of the church, that that they're being instructed to pray this prayer 3 times a day.
Yeah.
And we're concerned that we're praying it once a month or once a week. That maybe we're praying it too much. No, we're not praying it enough because this is constantly reorienting us. It's us checking the compass to be sure that we're headed in the right, or to use a more current example, that Google Maps is leading us to the right address. Yeah. This is that reorienting thing. And so when we're out of line there, if we are facing that temptation to assert our own authority, or individually or in community, we need to step back and say, okay, God, what are you doing here?
Yeah, and my mind also for this, deliver us from evil. I'm reminded of the passage in 2 Corinthians where it says that God will always provide a way out.
Yeah.
There is never a moment in our life where we are forced to sin.
That's right.
When we're forced to do evil. There has never been in the whole context of human history where someone has been forced to do that.
Yeah.
God always provides a way out. Now, you may have a gun to your head, if you want to think of those extreme examples. Still, what's the worst they can do? Kill you?
Exactly.
Right? So, delivering us from evil, God will provide a way out every single time. And so that when I'm counseling students about particular struggles that they have and so on and so forth, I remind them, look for that way out, because it's going to be there.
Right.
There will always be a way out.
And I think there's another facet to that. That is certainly a part of that. But I think there's also the facet of God deliver us from the influence of evil that is existing in our world.
Yep.
because there
cosmic scale.
Yeah, there are evils in this world. This, I forget which psalm it is, but where he'll protect us from the sun by day and the moon by night. That neither, that he's going to protect us from those things that can damage us in this world.
Yeah.
And so it is a prayer for protection. It is a prayer for being guarded from those who would do us harm.
Yeah.
And that's not a bad prayer to pray.
We're at time, but I want to mention one last thing about this.
Bring on. I think our listeners will hang in for a minute.
He will ultimately deliver us from all evil.
Yes.
There will come a day where all temptation and all evil will cease.
And again, there is that reorientation. It's that reminder. I know this to be true.
Yep.
So therefore, I can live my life in light of that truth.
Yep. That's good.
Oh, gosh.
All right, John. Well, next podcast will be we're going to debate over what is actually in the Lord's Prayer and what is not. So y'all tune in for the next one.
No doubt. Nice tease. Thanks. See you in a minute.